Ladies and gentlemen, get ready for an exciting finale as we kick off our last session of the day, the secret ingredient, white label. Please give a warm welcome to our moderator, Anton Sokolov, Marketing Manager at Brokeree Solutions.
Hello, everybody. Hope you had a successful event. It's the last day. Glad to see everybody in here. You all managed to come. My name is Anton. I will moderate this session, and today we're joined by excellent panel. Nichols from MatchTrader, Dmitri, Makrides, right, from Quadcode, Anastasia from Tools for Brokers, and Ran from Leverate. And I'll let the speakers introduce their companies and themselves if they want.
Hi everyone, I'm Ran Strauss and I'm the co-founder and CEO of Leverate. Leverate is a premium technology company providing turnkey solutions and trading platforms to brokers, exchanges, and financial institutions worldwide since 2008.
That was fast. Welcome everyone, my name is Anastasia Taganova, I represent Tools for Brokers. What we do is actually we're leading a tech bridge provider. So what we have the bridge, our main product. We are building the ecosystem. So we have the PAM system, we have a toolbox with many plugins and applications. And what I do in T4B is that I'm passionate working closely with white labels for about 3 years. And during the last year, probably, I lost lots of neurons because of white labels, but at the same time, I gained much expertise in the main question, how to protect white labels existing, what to do with the new ones, and what is actually the white label offer nowadays. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Dmitri Makrides. We are responsible for those neurons. So basically, I represent Quadcode Markets. It's a holding company of white label solutions. Specifically, I am representing market making of this solution, as our white label offers a turnkey solution with everything included. So we not only build a broker for you, but we help you operate it and run it too with all the backend. So it's basically a solution with all inclusive.
Hi everyone, my name is Michael. I'm the head of sales of MatchTrade Technologies. We are a technology and liquidity company servicing brokers for the past 10 years in the market. We're a group of companies licensed globally with offices around the world, servicing over 150 brokers currently. We originally started out providing white labels and now have adapted into our own server-independent license platform, as well as the rest of our products. Thank you.
Thanks for the introduction. So let's begin. The emergence of white label services decreased the time to market for new brands, new ideas an entrepreneur might have. And ultimately, white label service providers or white label services allowed entrepreneurs to save upfront costs, upfront investments, and focus on what's more important for their business, is growing their business and working closely with their clientele. So let's dive deeper and see what white label services nowadays allow for startup brands and for well-established brands. And how both of those types of companies can benefit. So Michael, could you briefly maybe walk us through the differences between main label and white label offering?
Yeah, of course. I think the obvious difference is the amount of control. So when you have a main label, otherwise known as an independent server license, you have the full control on your risk management, on your admin, you have more tools. You basically own the infrastructure. So that's one of the most important differences, I would say. Following which is the security of the server. So when you have your own server, you actually have an isolated server, so your client database is more secure than rather relying on the infrastructure of another tech provider, let's say. On the other side, though, you do have white labels, which can be beneficial for the startup broker or the one who, let's say, is kind of testing the system or wants to understand how things work. The white label kind of provides an all-in-one solution where it's, let's say, a bridge, CRM system. You're kind of piggybacking off the infrastructure of an existing broker, which does save you a lot of time and development efforts as well.
Thank you. Anybody else wants to add, maybe?
So I'll just add one thing. What we see from our side, first of all, we try to give the same set of features for a white label and a main server, of course. fully agree with you on that, Michael. And for us, the main reason that we would recommend a broker to have his own server is if the broker has a specific need of hosting the platform by itself. Otherwise, and I'm sure that we'll discuss it later, the whole combination that you can get from a tech provider while taking white label is probably much more cost effective.
I agree. It is indeed more cost effective, and you have all the solutions in one place. It really depends on the flexibility you want to be provided as the broker at the end of the day.
Right.
Well, I guess it should be quite clear, right? We've been in the industry for a while now, and the white label service offering is not new, but it's evolving, right? And it should be clear what are the benefits and why startup brands, right, leaning towards it. They don't have much money, maybe. They might not have the proficiency in the, all the technical infrastructure things. But when we think about well-established brands, it seems to be little to no reason for them to go for white label offering. Again, I might be wrong here, but let's open up the discussion and, find the ways for well-established brands to look into that.
Well, yeah.
Well, I always looked at the white label as a trial version. Even a big broker, a huge broker with lots of money, a white label, it's a testing to decide whether this platform is good enough, whether they need to go further and develop that and to invest more. So yeah, and besides, they will need to do just, dealing, because white label, there's a bridge, there is a technical support 24/7, there's education, administrative support, everything. So you're just testing the platform and then decide whether you need to go further. Right?
Well, yeah, for well-established companies, a white label solution would usually mitigate those risks, as you said, so it would allow them to run, let's say, testings into new spheres, industries, which they may say not have a lot of exposure at the moment, so it allows them to expand through different and various sectors, per se. Also, well-established companies choose white label solutions. Lately, we've seen it a lot with their own vendors, which they use for supplying, let's say, PSPs and so on, and different, for mutual beneficial reasons for them. Instead of outsourcing some companies or having contractual agreements with them, they partner with them and have them in-house, saves them a lot of money, time, and it allows them to expand themselves into those spheres as well.
You want to add something?
I actually completely agree with what was mentioned. So that's the main essence of a white label, I believe. It's to free up the space to be able to focus on the marketing, on the business, rather than having to worry so much about the technology. You're having that tech provider there that's supporting the infrastructure, and you can focus on the marketing and push the actual business.
Excellent inputs. Well, I do agree with the statement, right? And the list of benefits does seem quite straightforward. But when we try to think about concerns, right? When you are relying so heavily on the white label service provider offering on the infrastructure, you trust your dealing, you trust your client's data. Maybe, Dmitri, you could cover on this topic. So what are the risks that might arise when we speak about white label offering? Maybe they could be technical, reputational.
Well, listen, the risks that may arise in a white label offering, I would mostly say that they would fall under the provider not to fulfilling their contractual promises, because if everything is agreed upon hand, which is pretty flexible and having a nice agreement with the provider themselves, you can mitigate all those risks ahead. You can have risks of reputation, right? You can have the provider of the white label not meeting up to standards that he has promised to you. Or you can have even technological risks in terms of integration. You may not be able to integrate the white label into the technology of your offering. But all these little risks that may arise, like with a good agreement and a contract in place up front before you actually run with a white label, should all be covered. So basically, for example, with our brand, right, we have a few different ways to go around the white label. If you decide to go through our legal entity, which is a fast way and solution to run and open your broker, obviously you would run the risk for, let's say, us not being compliant with the regulatory agreements that you as a brand would like to follow or necessary to be to follow. If the other way around, example, you decide to run your own legal entity, let me put it this way, you are heavily relying on what we do for operations. So then you may have some regulatory obligations which you need to follow, and we may not be in line. So it is very important to choose a white label provider whom will highlight all these risks up front and make sure that all this agreement is made in a proper, set up a proper way for you to mitigate all these risks. So choose carefully for white label, not to have any risks, basically. Yeah, pretty much that's it. I think the most important. Maybe you guys want to add some.
I have to say that I'm not sure that you can actually in advance mitigate any risk that might arise. For example, no one was prepared for all of a sudden not to be able to download your trading app from the App Store. So I think that when you work with a third-party provider, you need to take it into account. I fully agree that, let's say, 80% you can prepare before, and the rest of the 20% is, like you said, work with the right provider and act fast.
Yeah, this why it's called risk mitigation, not exclusion. So you can mitigate the risks, always they will arise. But the more risks, let's say the more agreements you put in place beforehand, and everything is in accordance, the more risk you can mitigate. Of course, I agree with you totally. You cannot 100% exclude all risks. Everything is, conditional. Everything can arise upon in the future. But the best you make your choice, the more risk you can mitigate. Pretty much, yeah.
All clear? So we do focus, right? And it's essential for a business to consider all those aspects. And let's maybe switch a topic to costs of it, right? We do know that for most part, if we broadly look at offering, the cost of the white label is significantly lower than for the main label or for the, how do you call it?
Server or independent server. It's
okay, independent
the same
server.
thing.
Yes, but when we take into consideration all the additional services which might have been offered or included by default, maybe Ran, with your experience in the industry, what would you say are some hidden costs of white label offerings?
So when we say hidden costs, I think that the alternative is a cost that is not hidden. So it means that if you do everything in-house, you pay for it, and it's very clear, and you understand how much I pay for hosting and for cybersecurity and for the license of Microsoft and so on. Okay, so you know all the costs and you have the full breakdown. When you outsource it, then it becomes hidden, but it's still very much cost effective. So you need to understand that you are not holding the wheel, and that you are working with a provider that has its own agenda and priorities. And on top of that, something that we hardly see from brokers that we speak with is the fact that when you take a technology from someone else, there are certain actions and tasks that you would require your provider to perform for you. I think that's also something that you need to take into consideration and to make sure in advance that most of or all of the control is on your side. And you don't need to chase your provider for any change, whether if it's I would like to change my colors, my logo, to open a new business unit, to do something in the back or in the front. And we see it all the time. I think while choosing the right provider, you are able to avoid most of it.
So you're saying we need to basically, how would I say it gently, right? We basically need to be ready and assume that the tech provider knows what they're doing, that these solutions offered is the best for us, not because they wanted to sell, because it's easy for them to sell, but because they accumulated the expertise from other brands they work with.
Yes, the fact that as a technology provider you work with hundreds of different brands and you provide the innovation for everyone, and you hear something on one ear and you're able to deliver it to everyone, it's you need to trust your provider for having the right balance and the right agenda that he will deliver for you. At the same time, there are certain things that you would like to achieve, and sometimes you need to push more to get it, yes? But generally speaking, it's the same for everyone.
Right, so if we flip the question upside down, it will be what costs you are not spending and not caring about. rather than
Right.
what are the hidden ones. Michael, maybe you have some.
Yeah, again, I think Ran put it perfectly. It's about choosing the right provider and outlining exactly the cost. So you need to sit down with your provider and have an honest conversation. Okay, what's the cost for the tech? Is there any volume fees? Is there any monthly fees? You just need to sit down, outline everything, have it in contract, and then there's no such thing as hidden cost. It's the provider cannot really play around at that point. It's about trusting your provider and having that honest conversation about what is my cost. Is there a website? Is it hosting? What is it? And from there, you should be clear.
I just wanted to add, so we are talking about the financial costs, about money. But, and you're right, Ron, that internally, if everything's in-house, it's fine. But there is one factor that we cannot control. Can you guess which one? The human factor. And we're talking about the traders. So let's say if there is a complaint from a trader going to a licensee provider, let's say Metacode, a C-trader, usually it's better for a client to negotiate directly with the licensee provider rather than through the white label provider. Because there are so many responsibilities over the on the white label provider that may, make the process a bit more difficult. So that's external, let's say, costs.
Thank you. So, to the most part, as it seems, when going with white label services, the offering implies that a brand will be locked into some sort of an offer or an infrastructure. But usually, as Ran mentioned, right, there might rise the opportunities or like the ideas for some customization and everything. And Anastasia, maybe you could, as a white label provider on this panel, right? And maybe you could comment on that one. So how much customization and freedom of choice a brand would have when, starting to work with white label providers?
Thank you. Well, talking about the customization, probably I might say that it's quite flexible nowadays. So let's say talking about the branding, now white label can brand the terminal, they can have their personal website, the mobile applications, even in iOS or Android. Yes, it may cost some extra charge, but still it's possible. In terms of, let's say, the product's new features or functionality, let's say there is no needed function in the trading platform, and the client goes to the white label provider, hey, can you develop that for us? Can you customize your existing product? And at this step, it's better to choose a provider who can provide a variety of products or at least be very open for the customization. So let's say they have, the swap-free solution, and they just add an extra feature and the client is happy. But on the other hand, if we talk about the freedom of choice or just a freedom, I love white labels, but sometimes they are very limited. So let's say if we talk about the data and rights, no matter what is the trading platform, there is a division, the client, manager, and admin terminals. Admin is for the white label provider, manager for white labels. And obviously, they are limited, so they do not have all the rights. Let's say if we talk about the MetaTrader, they do not have access to the journal, so they do not have access to the logs, which is quite crucial sometimes for the white labels. In this case, extra solutions can be done. I believe my partners, colleagues can also agree that sometimes it's just not needed to have the full access. Because let's say the feature to modify orders, I know lots of trading platforms that are against of that. So it's like about the policy of a white label, about the culture, white label provider. So that's something like that. You ask about the integration of the third-party solutions. It was mentioned already that, let's say, if we talk about the CRM or the API, no REST API, no problem. A white label can do that, everything. But if we talk about the third-party solutions like plugins or the bridges, so something that requires the installation on the server. You do know that white labels share the same environment with many clients. So some or the majority of white label providers do not willing to do that, or they just don't do it at all because it's a risk. It's a risk not for the white label only, but for all the white label clients, right?
I would have to come back also to the question that you asked Ron earlier, and like a hybrid between the question that you asked. It all comes down to cost. I mean, it's coming to what you said before, like the hidden cost. Not actually hidden cost is something that's pretty agreeable. By choosing the white label, that, for example, that's where the choice, the correct white label choice comes in place. If you choose a white label, which they develop everything in-house, for the right amount of money, everybody can develop something additional for you. If they have the backend of their own, let's say, administration that they have of their own control, or the platform itself, the one that they develop, so you can flexibly like customize anything you want. Obviously, yes, it is hard, and most white labels, as a standard per se, they have a standard of non-so-flexible solution with limited customization. But if you choose the right white label, which is able to develop those features for you, that runs to the costs that we discussed earlier. With an additional fee, everything is possible.
So here I fully agree with you on the topic of you need to choose someone that is able to provide you with professional services, that you can come to your provider and ask for a specific customization and you get it for this and that amount of money. On top of that, if you work with the right partner and you have your own set of APIs, which you just mentioned, and on top of that, you have a whole ecosystem of other companies developing plugins and additional products, and if your provider supports the right integrations for you, then I think that it's a complete freedom of choice for any white label or broker.
Sometimes you may not even have to add any customization because this product is just so good.
So perfect, of course.
You wanted to add?
Yes, sure. So I think what everyone mentioned here is exactly correct. I do want to point the fact of what Anastasia mentioned about sometimes you are a little bit on the customizations, even the plugins. Not every tech provider will be willing for you to add a plugin into their server. It might affect the ecosystem of all the other brokers. So that's kind of why, like on Match Trade, we saw the need and we developed even the main label, the server license, so brokers have more flexibility. You have to remember it's up to the tech provider at the end when you have a white label on what he will do and what he will not do. So you can't force him into adding a plugin or changing something, as it might affect the rest of his products. And it will also be a third-party plugin, which, as we know, they're not too fond of often.
Thanks, everybody. So when we speak about startup brands, there comes a point where a brand would need to get a license from some specific regulators. Ran, maybe you could cover this question. So what should a white label brand consider when planning to go or like to become regulated with some major regulations or like major authorities in the place?
So it's an interesting question for this panel. I think that as a technology providers, we are kind of side players when it comes to regulation, but we are a key and mandatory player. So I think that the two main reasons for a new brand to choose which jurisdiction and which regulation is obviously where the headquarters is located and where the target market is. Now, after you choose the right regulator, then obviously your technology provider must be in a position that it can fully support everything that you need. Here is exactly the space where we become the mandatory players. So I think that it's very important to have an option to have a very flexible questionnaire and to choose change scoring for different questions and different clients. When it comes to the back office, you would like to see from your provider the ability to use AI for document verification and for call monitoring and so on. So the fact that we will not dictate anyone which jurisdiction is after, but choosing the right provider will assist you to become so efficient and so compliant when it comes to the right partner and the right regulation.
Thank you. Anastasia, I know you have lots of experience with helping brands land in the right place. Maybe you have some insights on what specific aspects they should be thinking of when going for to the jurisdiction or
It's
training
such
platform for the
a pain in my heart with this question because, no, really. Usually white labels on MetaTrader, everybody knows that MT4, MT5, and all the new requirement is just something we cannot predict what to be in the future. So last year, SVG, St. Vincent and Grenadines, was, let's say, cancelled. It's not available anymore. One of the fastest solutions now was Anguilla, Comoro, St. Lucia. But just like yesterday, I think I've heard a rumor that probably it will have the same future as SVG, so nobody can guarantee that these unregulated countries will be still safe. And of course, one of the best options still more expensive, more time-consuming, like Seychelles and Mauritius. But I don't know the answer to the question how to persuade a white label, a beginner broker, to apply for the Seychelles or Mauritius license, because the cost is very high. But the task of the white label provider, I think, to persuade that it's one of the only ways. So you either go in the direction of the progress of the development, and unfortunately, you have to spend like a fortune for this proper license, and then you live your happy life. Otherwise, you will be sitting on a hot chair, and you don't know what will happen tomorrow. So it just, I don't know, it's a game.
So can I add something up to that as well? So there's different ways to go around this, I agree. Like first, what Ron said initially about like choosing the right solution provider, let's say, that already fulfills all the requirements up to what the regulator would need if you would like to go for a, let's say, more strict regulator, that's the license. So if you would like to spend a lot of money acquire that super license and spend even more money on acquiring traffic, because as we all know here, European traffic is pretty expensive, right? So if that's the way you would go for a white label, okay, kudos. Then you would have to find a good white label which actually complies to those obligations that you will have the regulatory. But to what Anastasia said as well, there is many solutions for like, how to persuade a starting company, a startup, a white label to go for the most expensive, even non-European regulated license, right? There are companies which offer, for example, ourselves in Quadcode, when a startup comes and they want to build a broker with us, we can offer them the solution to go under our own legal entity. So that frees up space for them. Obviously, you have to heavily rely on us, right? And that's where the contractual agreements come into place. And that's in the future, if you want to, let's say, extract and make your own legal entity, a different brand, and so on, we give you that space as well. But that unties and gives the opportunity to startup companies to onboard and run through, because at the end of the day, we're talking about non-European regulated licenses. Most of them are required for reputation and for payment providers in most cases. So you want to have acceptable and respectful payment providers to onboard for your clients to get quality traffic. So if you find the right solution, they can offer that to you too, as well.
You wanted to share something?
Yes, actually, I was about to say the exact point of Dmitri.
Right.
So the main problem that we forget often is not just the licensing and which geo-target is, are we going to find payment providers, which is honestly a pain in the ass in our industry, to be quite forward. So it's the payment providers, it's the liquidity providers, it's all those service providers that will they work with us and will they accept the jurisdictions we're working with as a broker. So that's one of the critical elements we need to always remember.
That was my thinking behind this question, right? When, is it even possible for white label brand to get into very strict regulation like FCA, SISIC, ASIC? If they're locked into the
it is possible, yes. They can have their different holding companies. They can have their own licensing from SISIC to whatever.
They're willing to spend the money, yeah. It is.
All comes down to money.
Yes.
White label offers might usually, they're not getting looked down upon, right? But they sometimes can feel a bit limited or like a bit distant from the freedom customization brings from the full licensed one or like from the individual server. So let's finish up this session with the question and discuss a bit about the prominent or upcoming trends in white label service offering, because the offering or like the idea, the concept been on the market for so long, clearly some there are some new USPs flying around and something interesting which white labels could look forward to.
So it's a great opportunity to share what we consider as the trends or the things that we are working on. We saw AI coming into our life quite fast. And we see it not only in the back office, but also on the client side. For example, we just released a chatbot for service and support for traders, 24/7, any language. And that's very easy to do when you have GPT and AI. I think that mobile is not a trend. So when we have brokers where sometimes more than 80% of the traders and the trades are coming from mobile, it means that as a broker, you must have the best mobile platform out there. And I think that we all have it or claim to have it. And the last thing is automation. Brokers would like to become more efficient, and it is in our hands and in our power to make their life easy and focus more also on automation.
Anybody else?
Yeah, I would totally agree with Ron. AI and machine learning is actually a new emerging market that white label is focusing a lot on, like that you white label the solutions a lot to existing companies. We've seen a lot of involvement in the banking sector as well, in the financial, the general and fintech sector. And like no secret to anybody, like what's the new emergent thing that everybody is using now is with white labels, the SaaS, the software as a service, by hosting the server on their end and uploading and updating all the, let's say, uploading all the updates immediately through their service without having anybody to host, which is the in-hosting solution that Mike said before. So yeah, it's evolving in many sectors.
I agree. I think it just goes back to finding a tech provider he's focused on innovation and growing with you, not just on having a standard offer and that's it. The tech provider also needs to be evolving as the market evolves. So like we're seeing lots of trends in mobile, in servers, even in prop trading is a new thing that's come up. So we, as a tech provider, we also need to be innovative to keep up with our brokers' needs.
Thank you.
I just wanted to...
Yeah, sure, please do.
So basically, white label offer, if you even Google white label offer, what you can notice is that there is a tendency for I don't know whether there is the word in English, but multi-platformism, so that every white label provider is trying to add as many platforms as possible. But we are in T4B, we're doing a deep research whether the trading platform would be useful for brokers, whether there would be a demand. So that's in terms of the quantity. In terms of the quality, we're trying to update or integrate our products into each trading platform. So let's say if a white label is coming for us for this particular trading platform, we also can provide this and that solutions, so that in the end they will have, that my colleagues told, all-in-one solution. And happy client.
Thank you. That's actually quite a good idea, or like comment there, right? That white label services do not only come down to the single product you are trying to get and white label, basically, right? It all comes down to the ecosystem and infrastructure around it. And if you're able to plug and play, or if you're able to add something, remove something, if you're able to work with the tech provider to encompass all your operations, then that's the right choice you made. Right choice you made. I can't speak today. The day has been too long. I think we've done with the questions. We can carry to the carry opportunity to the audience. If anybody else, you have any questions, please do ask.
May I have a question to the audience?
Oh, sure.
Is there any active existing white label? Interesting. Is there anyone who would like to be a white label?
I'm looking at it from the other way. We're going to own the customers. So we're looking to build a fintech after we acquire the customers through other services. Okay? We don't want to build out all the technology. So for the payments, WorldPay will deal with it in Europe, and then we'll plug in something in Dubai and something in Malaysia and something in America. Probably not Stripe because they're too damn expensive. And then we reverse it, because once we've got a payment system, then we go out and do the financial products. Okay, so we don't want to develop everything. We want to work with the best, full stop. So equities, banking, insurance, the whole drama suite. And we're doing it Islamic, okay? Because there's a 1.8 billion Muslim market out there, which everyone forgets. You know, they look at China and say, wow, it's so big, or India. There's going to be as many Muslims in 10, 15 years as there is Indians and Chinese. Everyone's missing it. Anyway, one of the ideas that we look at is when we white label, yeah, we have our own compliance, but that's ours. When we white label, we're expecting the white label partner to look after all the regulatory. We don't want to be taken to court for $6 billion like Citibank. Okay? We don't want the KYC issue. We'll know our clients. That's our problem. So we're looking at it as a way of, you know, risk mitigation. Throw out those risks to the people that are best capable. I mean, I invented public-private partnership, so I understand the principle. Let whoever's better at it, do it. You know, we control the clients, we're happy with that. We'll share the fees. Not a problem. But is that the wrong way to look at it? Or is that innovative? I don't know. I mean, I came from a banking background and I can see the mess out there right now.
So can I answer? Yeah. So basically it all comes down to the provider that you look at, right? So it's not the wrong way to look at it. Actually, if it's the correct way to look at it, because white labels are here to untie your hands from all this hassle, which you just described. So if, let's say, you have the clientele, you have the traffic, the people, you want to attract them to a certain market, let's say, to a certain product, not market, okay? White labels are there, for example, our specific product, Quadcode. You can come to booth 37, we can talk about it after. We offer the whole solution, and all in one, yeah? So we offer the KYC, the AML, the compliance, the regulatory, so you don't have to worry about all that if you go under the legal license, which we offer, right, and open your entity through us. So that's the right way to look at the white label, as long as you choose the right white label to work with.
I'm not sure if the right way is to use the license of someone else. So I mean that, okay, that's an option.
It's a first
But
stage. We may be fine.
maybe.
Once we get big enough,
At the same time, it will create you additional risks. So I'm not sure what's the right way. There will be white labels that will take this way and others will take the other way around. It definitely assists and shorten times, and also you drop a lot of the responsibility, like you said. At the same time, you will have to worry for other things. I think, statistically speaking, the majority of white labels will have their own solutions. There will be ones that will definitely use other licenses.
But it's a patchwork quilt, because the problem if you want to be global, there's no one who can do you global. Okay?
Right.
So, you know, there's no payment provider that's going to do Iran for me in Europe. It's full stop. And if it's a two-way process, you have to create a patchwork quilt of white labels, which, as far as your client sees, it's just your brand. It's see-through. But we don't have to worry about any of that. We pay someone, they do it. We maybe pay two different parties and we choose, and if anyone goes bust, we just migrate. I think banks are almost doing this, because when I went looking at NatWest, Barclays, HSBC, none of them are doing payments anymore. I mean, what the hell is wrong with them? That's how they used to make money on FX. I guess they're not doing FX anymore. I don't know. But the world's definitely going through a transition. And it's a mess. Right now, it's an absolute mess. I mean, the number of people I talk to that have payments stopped and they don't even know about it, because some computer throws up a red flag and then 3 months later they found they haven't paid someone. That's a mess.
I have to agree with Ron, what he said. Of course, heavily relying on the provider, right, with the license and everything implies a risk involved, right? That's where it comes to choosing the right provider for you. And that's where agreements come in place. Airtight, contractual agreements. So when you choose the right white label, of course, you are heavily dependent on them, but that is where it comes to the right of choice. So you have to make the right choice.
Yeah, it's a symbiosis.
It really depends, because once you're also using their license, they're heavily involved in the compliance, in the risk, in how you profit, how you lose, so they take a stake in your company in an essence.
Yeah,
It does
they're
fit-
buying volume.
Exactly.
It's incentive.
It's there's no right or wrong, I guess, in this case. It
Yeah.
really depends on your business needs. Yeah.
Okay, so there's nothing hugely wrong with the concept. Fine.
On the oppose, actually. Yeah.
Any more questions? I guess not. And I think it's time.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, guys.